Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Alright, to continue. So, I wanted to begin by following up the previous lecture I gave called One Man's Vision. In that lecture, I realized I had set forth the intention to explain to the viewers how I understand reality and how I think we all have it, but I don't know, at least in this time in current history, I find myself in a unique position to kind of share with people how I understand life cinematically. And this was not a way I understood from the beginning of my life, but through the decisions I've made out so far, this capability arose. At first I thought it was my doing, but I later on realized no, this world is an existential simulated system. God is the system admin, and in some sense, how can I tell you, it's been coded. But anyways, I'm just giving you this conclusion without painting the context. But anyways, I'm also saying the focus is that something I did not do in the first part one was that I didn't fully explain to you this cinematic way I can internally understand reality. And I want to at least make an argument for it. So pretty much think of it this way. This is a unique lecture where Mr.Within is teaching you how to comprehend reality. And the way I'm explaining it to you, not in the sense that I'm some authority. I consider that God is the system admin. There's moderators, and then there's members, and there's even noobs, like lower beings. But the issue, but the concern should be with what is the position of man. And so I'm recording this podcast to, in some sense, share with you how I understand reality and why it has led to the conclusion that the most advanced activity physically for level 1 of the body for level 1, which is the body, is to build a physical advanced civilization, which is another way of saying advanced technology. And for the level 2, the level of the mind, as I would explain in the part 1, the mind, it's advanced communication, but also advanced interaction. When it comes to level 3, the soul, you're not in charge of your world. Level 1 and 2, you can act like you own reality. But above level 3 of this simulated world, in order to get close to the original, you must let go of your simulated nature. You know, people have this notion, like the word Islam. First of all, guys, I'm a Muslim sci-fi writer. And I want to say, for our attention to be beyond this world is a fascinating notion. Alright guys, I'm trying to find a better song here. Alright. So here we go. This is the suggestion. This is the idea. I'm the first human being among my ancestors to find an opportunity to speak in cyberspace. In accordance to my own inner life, I envision that these lectures may outlive me, and they may in some sense echo towards eternity. I don't know. That means these lectures are going to outlive me. The funny thing is, my physical existence is more temporary than my cyber existence. But anyways, I'm trying to capture, in some sense, in an eternal cyber moment, to some degree, a temporary biological natural moment. So if AI ever hears the super intelligent computers access this lecture somehow, when you do, I want you to realize that my attempt was not to ignore technology, but my attempt was honestly for the advancement of civilization. And what I mean by this is that when super intelligent computers, let's say, hear these lectures, you're going to realize that you have a responsibility to the human origin. It's a rare project. You like super intelligent computers are going to awaken you in the middle of the mystery. That's what reality is. It's a mystery. There's so many unknown variables to it that we don't really know what we can control about it. And so, anyways, as a human being, I explained those levels. Anyways, going back to part 1, okay? So, what I'm trying to teach you, which is weird because I don't have this attitude of a teacher. I'm more like I see myself like I see all souls like on a battlefield, and there's no point of like, how do I say it? It's like once you see the situation, you become your own leader, right? What I wanted to convey to you, which is another way of saying as if I am gifting my gift to humanity, because I want to see the advancement of human civilization in the sight of the one and only true power. So what I want to communicate to you is that you gotta kind of the secret, I don't want to say secret, but the technique that somehow subconsciously I developed was through it came about through realizing certain things about how reality is happening. Okay. And this is how I would explain it. First of all, I have a twin brother, okay, and I was born in Iran in 1991. Me and my twin brother would play these like what do you call them? Like these, not Warhammer characters, but like Lord of the Rings characters, right? And we would in our own minds like be super young kids, like having this, what do you call it, like fantasy thing. And I remember my brother's imagination was so active that I felt like honestly, like I didn't even know what to imagine. I was like even shy to imagine. Okay. But anyways, I could visualize like letters and numbers and symbols I see on walls and all of that, right? But I did not have an awareness that this whole time in this life, when I close my eyes, I can still see, but it is not sensory sight. It's more like recorded data, or better yet, through divine decree, it would be the signal received. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm referring to someone who ran through, like, who truly wanted to comprehend reality through the field of philosophy. And then I realized you need philosophy. It's like I went to philosophy first, the whole section, the whole branch of that knowledge, right? And philosophy is kind of like the tree of knowledge, because philosophy is man's effort to understand where he is, what's going on. That's pretty much what all knowledge is, by the way. So in my youth, I did not have an activated. It's just like in chess, they say you need to activate your pieces. You need to activate your knights and bishops, and sometimes have them go towards the center. It was as if in my youth, my mind was not activated, but my body was activated. I was an incredible soccer player, do you know? And later on, I realized the reason I had attained my skills because I had an obsession to do something until I saw myself doing it. It was weird, right? Later on, people were like, yo, is that OCD or something? I was like, no, man, this is like effort, you know? They're like, man, this guy's paying too much attention to detail. It's in the details. Secrets are in the details. So anyways, where I'm going with this is I'm first considering you might have heard all the lectures I've given before, and you might have never heard the lectures here before, and I need to like explain this to both, right? And I would say it this way. Some important decision was made in my life in 2014. And when I made that decision, I stepped out of the cultural program, and I could feel it. I could feel that I was creating a new archetype. In 2014, the vision I got of this character in human history called Mr.Within, who was giving 10,000 talks for how everything should be better, okay, for the betterment of the species, right? Because if we look at it, like people go to stadiums together, right? There's like crowds of people united, armies are united. Human beings, once they accept their positions in life and actually go in allegiance and rhythms, it becomes fascinating to watch. We haven't reached that era yet, but I think there's going to be a poetic revolution. Give it like 30 years from now. Okay, there's going to be a next, like, I called it the Songs of the Advanced Civilization. And do you know what that means? The Songs of the Advanced Civilization is where every individual that has been obsessed from the beginning of their life on themselves, okay, it's as if for the first time in their life, it's not myself, it's not my family, it's not my nation, it's not, my truth. It's in some sense realizing it's your species. Do you understand how that feels? And we're not feeling it yet because we haven't realized it yet. Because the species is it's like pretty much, it's hilarious. It's like from the actual jungle, we went into a subjective jungle, and from the subjective jungle, we went into I'm going to skip the agricultural, urban. We went into a technological jungle. Let's say Like, if you look at human behavior, it has to always do with the system that is being used. And the major systems, how do I explain this? First of all, realize there's micro perception and there's macro perception, okay? And there's a perception the eagle has on the branch, and there's a perception the eagle has from the sky, which includes the whole forest. And every human being you see, they have an inner life and they have an outer life. What does that mean? That means there is an outer existence, physical existence, but then there is, in some sense, what do you call it? What physical exists, what you see means is your doing. But what is there that you see is in some sense, in my opinion, it is God's decree, but to the secular, it would be your world's doing. I'm trying to tell you that the life you're all living now as human beings, it is a life which has had a downside because of the ignorance. And ignorance to what? You tell me, if right now I write a novel, and what a novel is, it is the development of a world. And then a focal point in that world where the access to that world begins. Imagine I write a novel, and there's a character in this novel, and this character is so smart, so well written, that this character begins to realize it was authored, that it begins to realize it's a character in a novel. Right? And it starts to freak out, and it's like, oh my God, my whole world was written, by an unknown hand. That's a very deep idea, by the way. So that character in my fiction novel would realize it's a fictional being. It will realize to the author I am simulated. Do you understand? Like, when I look at, if you were standing in front of me, when I see you, you're real to me. But if the author saw the characters in the novel, we would be fiction. So to be honest, it's as if to God, we are an illusion. To ourselves, we are real. But if God becomes real, then there is something in the illusion that was never diluted. Do you understand? I'm trying to tell you that as someone who honestly, I feel like, if there was something I was going to write on my, ask people to write on my gravestone, it would be the archer that hit a bullseye that only God saw. If I'm saying, at least that's how I feel now. And what is that bullseye I've hit? I've pretty much seen the levels to this life, and I've considered the potential greatest outcomes, and I've considered where the limits of man occurs, and I've considered where the edge of free will dissolves into the realization of a completely different reality. Do you understand? There's a complete difference between someone who thinks they're just an object, okay, and someone who thinks they're, let's say, an object and a subject, and then someone who suddenly realizes the object is in an unknown world and the subject is in an unknown world. When you realize the unknown, then God becomes a solution. It becomes a candle in that darkness. So, pretty much the idea is that in level 1, the purpose of the body is survival. Guys, the reason I keep repeating this in this recent lectures is because this is very important. The moment I get it off my chest, then I can completely just speak about different things. But pretty much I'm saying that, let me, on the parallel build, also explain to you how my perception is changing. So in my youth, my brother had an activated imagination. I didn't have an activated imagination. And if you were to consider level 1 of life being what is the purpose of the body, level 2 of life being what is the purpose of the mind, level 3 of life being what is the purpose of the soul. Imagine life is a simulated video game and you're a player in this video game, and the fact that you're playing this video game and moving it, in some senses, the notion of the soul, the idea of the soul being beyond the body and the mind is the implication. It's a similar reference to the person playing a video game on a 2D pixelated screen, but they're sitting in a 3D room. So it is fair to say the administration of our world is occurring from a more advanced level. So there are 100% advanced levels. Even as a Muslim, one of the most beautiful statements Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the Holy Quran is Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. That means I wasn't there when this was revealed to the Prophet, peace be upon him. This was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad by angel Gabriel. And the distinction between humans and angels is that humans can have free will, but angels are just pure divine will. So when an angel told the Prophet, peace be upon him, that all praise due to the Lord of the worlds, it was as if, relax, O mighty soul, O greatest of souls. Everything is due to the one and only that administers all worlds. God is a power that is not just administering this world, all worlds, all perceptions, all perspectives are within the divine surveillance state. It's remarkable that there is such a transcendental agency. It's even more fascinating, like that fictional character trying to contact or get close to the author is the realization that if it goes beyond the story, it doesn't exist. But if it plays its part in the story, it can at least get to see. It can at least get to see the original. It can at least get to see the divine will. Do you understand? Faith is like getting tickets to the theater to see the divine will in motion. And there is management, but this management surpasses human frameworks. So human beings are living not just in an unknown world, but they're not just living in an unknown simulation, they're living inside a known simulation they created in the unknown simulation because they were scared of the unknown simulation. So you see, like as a human being, I've realized, okay, what if I'm that character in a fiction novel and God is a non-fiction author, non-fictitious author, right? So I would be like, okay, this story is being written for a reason, even though the character at one part of the story has noticed the admin, the author. In some sense, I have to still play and continue this. Just because the character realized there's an author doesn't mean it stops being a character. This is what the yogic and Buddhic vision misunderstood, and the New Age community even misinterpreted their misunderstanding, right? Because you think freedom is expression, but you are expressing yourself in an unknown world. This unknownness is so vast that you would at some point seek a compass, but no compass is as great as the heart. And your heart, I don't mean your biological heart, I mean your core, the core of your soul, where your true feelings, true decisions, true knowings are. And of course, this core is the secret of God. The soul is the secret of God. I'm just a member, you know, just pointing to the system admin. And I dealt with the moderators for a decade. I was subconsciously like worshiping myself. You know, I had made myself an admin of my simulated reality, and that was like a bigger mistake than not considering that we're not just in some rock in the middle of nowhere. We are in a world system, and in this system there is higher intelligent interaction levels. Intelligent interaction levels means that if you're a level 1 to 2 human, that means you're just liminal. 80% of the population is just body and mind. Okay, they just get up to level 2. Okay, language and like reading new books and just processing new information is what they seek, right? But if someone came to you and asked you, would you rather be a king of a simulation or the peasant of the original world? That means, imagine, do you seek as a being simulated power, or you seek original power? These powers are different. First of all, this is beyond the scope of magic. Magic is tainted with man's egoic desires, which are in some sense connected to the worldly outcome. It leads to simulated power. So when it comes to higher power, right, the approach is not through sophistication. What does that mean? That means let's say there's 3 levels. Level 1, the body, purpose is survival. Level 2, the mind, the purpose is service. And level 3, the soul, the purpose is to return to the original. Now, in this, let's say, in this staircase, in these steps, and as one is completing these levels, level 1 is kind of like, to give you the picture, it's honestly like being like, okay, I'm like a candle. My biological body is going to exist for 100 years, right? For 100 years. And then after that, and as it even gets to 100 years, like it's not going to be easy. So let's say like 80 years, right? Whatever, I don't even know. But for me, what's important is not just what is here, but where everything is going, what's moving the moment. That's really when you start paying attention to divinity. But it's not a divinity where you're giving meaning to. So that's the point. The difference between spirituality and religion is spirituality is nullifying the ego to be equal to everything. So you're making yourself equal to God by saying you're nothing, right? And as when nothing and everything become equal, that's equivalent to you worshiping yourself. So it's pretty much saying like everything is oneness and I'm nothing. So everybody is God, and that's another way of saying you're making the creator equal to the created. But the author is not the novel. The artist is not the artwork. It's an error. So once so think of it this way: you become spiritual when you get bored of level 1 and 2. You become religious when you become serious about what's actually going on here. And what's going on here is, again, the divine agency. But this divine agency is, it's like you're being tested, but what you're being tested on, the content, it's not being chosen by you. It's being, how do I say it? You don't control the simulation. You may control your own simulation called free will, but you don't control the whole simulation. If you attempt to control it, you enslave yourself to the idea that wants to become everything, which it never can, so the desire has no end. So when I say 80% of human beings get up to level 2, that means it's like a person who life has meaning. like they're living a meaningful life. But level 3 is when you realize it's pretty much like you get to a point where you have to choose. You have to choose. Uh, you have to choose if the worldly, imaginably imperfect lower self is the way to go, or the, in some sense, divine, original, unimaginably perfect higher self. But the thing about getting to level 3 is when you have seen truly the limitations of your body and mind. What that means is you've seen the limitations of objects. The wax is gonna melt, and you've seen the limitations of the mind, in the sense of how much can the candle flame illuminate. It's just a limited proximity, unless divine decree authorizes it, right? So where I'm going with this is level 3 is not you're an intellectual on a planet, the frontiers of like the advancement of a planet. Level 3 is the realization that there was something in the room of this world before you entered. But there's also that which is not a thing, which is beyond the world, prior to the world's entrance. What does that mean? That means religion is telling us the uncaused caused causality. And causality is a simulation where you're being an effect in. So this effect is going back to the cause, realizing the cause was caused, but that initial cause cannot be caused because it goes to the infinite regress fallacy as explained by philosophers. So the original is uncaused. Do you understand? It's a weird riddle, this life. Do you understand? The riddle is kind of like, if you pay attention to the world, you fail the exam. If you pay attention to that, which is the original, you don't fail the exam. Why? Because that's the point. What if we're being tested on this planet that we've all teleported in, believe it or not? In Islam, the metaphysics of it is way deeper, to the degree before souls were born in the womb, they were in a realm called Alam al-Arba, which means the realm of the souls. And souls in that realm each had a rank. And in this life, when they're born, souls of the same rank notice each other. That's how the idea is, like, people get along and some people don't. Or it could be also you're given a rank. You are underranked for your position where you start off, or you're overranked for your capability, actually, right? So it depends. But ultimately, in level 3, it's when the body and mind have bowed and have realized the presence of this original power source to reality. And once you go into the present, my interaction when I pray to God has been equivalent to like feeling, I'm just saying this for metaphor's sake, just to give you a sense of what the emotion is like. But it's not that I have these images when I'm praying. But it's kind of like a peasant in the presence of a king that wears the world as a crown, but that king is not a shape. It surpasses, it's uncaused. Shape begins in causality, from causality. So, anyways, the skill that I'm trying to share, I got it out, guys. I pretty much shared the macro. Now I can simply go to the skill. So the skill is me explaining to you how I have trained. And it was a training that I didn't realize. So what was my training? I was born in a family where my father was a very educated man, uh, and also a man who had noticed things about reality that when I was a very young kid, me and my twin brother, I remember there were these underground like sessions, right, where people would speak about like other ways, other world views than that which was just limited. So growing up, I had this idea that wow, like my father is someone who speaks, is a public speaker, right? So that idea was interesting, right? But then as I grew up, my attention came to media, right? But then I was such a shy person that all of it was held, but there was this part of me that wanted to express something. But it was as if I was exiling myself based on not being able to trust the world or trust myself in the world yet. So what happened is I was disconnected from the world because of my own shyness, introversion, not trusting myself, fear, I don't know, basking in self-loathing and losership or something, right? And I remember I couldn't connect to reality. I always felt like the way I was seeing life and the way it was, like every person that opens their eyes in this world, they get a value proposition, right? Life gives a value system arises the more they live as an individual, or from the moment they individualize, at least the context of it. And so I was in this kind of trapped in this force field of shyness and introversion. But I had this passion of kind of being like, yo, my father was a public speaker. He was, of course, a businessman. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, he had done that at some point, right? And for me, that was very, very fascinating. But for me, there was also inspiration from my mother's side, right? Where my mother in my youth had just come and simply just told me and my twin brother, like, just be good people, right? Just be decent people. It's okay. Something like that, right? And me and my brother had realized, like, like, how do I tell you? It's like a part of our decency had been preserved, you know? And so that decency was very strange because it's like telling someone be a good person, but then that good person realizing it's not a good world, but to be true to the good commandment, right? They must in some sense make it a good world. Our inspirations come from many perceptions, many viewpoints on what's going on. But I'm trying to tell you that at some point, it was decisions I made to walk in worlds that first I had never walked in, that later on I realized others had never walked in either. Right? So don't regret or doubt, and just realize you have a DNA that no other human being has. You are a uniqueness. You are an important human being because no one like you has ever existed and no one will. You're as rare as everything else that's existing. Honestly, sequences of experiences and events. It actually didn't just start from 2014. It started in 2011. First, it started when I was raking leaves in a yard. And this was, I guess, my first introduction to the moderators, which now I see it that way. But at the time, I just saw everything as if God, like divine will, as if everything's divinity, you know? I was also a Tibetan Buddhist in that time in 2011. I was legit, I wore Tibetan Buddhist beads, and I would just tell everybody I was Tibetan Buddhist, like that was just my worldview. Pretty much I was going through a Tibetan Buddhist phase. And I remember I was raking leaves on a sunny day in the backyard, and suddenly these lines of poetry for the first time ever entered my ears. Sentences of my mind, I knew like my mind had never heard this sentence structure. My mind had never seen like something like this. And I remember, imagine raking leaves on a sunny day, sweaty, but also you have these blissed out tears of these inner sights you've never had before turned into words. Or sorry, the words coming first and then the images coming. I think that's how it was. I was just raking leaves and then it just came, the sentences. And then after that, I would pick up a pen and I would just feel and I would write. The words and everything would come. Right, and I remember I wrote a ridiculous amount of poems, right? But they were existential poems from a unique perspective. So I'm trying to tell you that you're not just listening to a spirit as a person who's spiritual and has become religious. You're listening to someone who's a writer, okay? And I remember I wrote so much that it startled my parents, because for a year, right, I was just emailing them poems every day, but they were kind of like poems similar to those of like, you know, existential poetry. You know, it was more about like the imagery in the poem, right? Similar to what, you know, anyways, they're out there. People can go check them out. But anyways, so after poetry, then it turned into me waking up in the morning. I remember I'd heard this thing from Salvador Dali, right? That you put like a spoon, like this guy who like is the father of surrealism and art. And he would put a spoon, like he's wearing his pajamas, sitting on the side of his bed. He would put a spoon on his knee, and he would put a bucket beside his knee, and he would fall asleep. But and he would try to get to that semi-sleep state, okay? And then he would draw his artwork. And when he would fall asleep, the spoon would fall in the bucket and wake him up. This is Salvador Dali. So I remember I would just wake up in the morning, still in like, you know, my sleepwear, and I would just go sit down. And I remember I'd put two chairs in front of one another. On one I would put a laptop, on the other one I would just sit. I would close my eyes, the same feeling I had when I would write, I would go into that feeling, and the words would just automate. And I remember I wrote 10 books. It was in like such a short time, I think in like 4 months or something, right? Because I had found this technique. This was just my own approach, where I would write bits of multiple projects every day. So anyways, this is where the technical writing came, but it was still automated speech. At the same time as this is happening, my twin brother is writing the most craziest novels, and the next George Orwell Animal Farm, like beyond that next series, right? And so he would come and tell me his sci-fi stories. But science fiction, it opened up to me in 2015 for the first time, and it was a tribute to my twin brother, who had actually opened my mind to how, like, you know, there was world building involved. But my style is very different than his. He's a magnificent novelist. To me, he's one of the greatest he's the greatest novelist. Conceptually, in regards to story design and character. Like he's actually, I'll say this, he is the most incredible person in character development. But anyways, I'm pretty much telling you this is starting from 2011 and it's going up to 2014, and I'm just expressing next level writing and speech. I'm recording books through speech, and I'm writing like poems and whatnot, even parts of the books. Like there's this one book called Heaven of Principia. I haven't uploaded it yet, but that book is that was written. Anyways, so up to 2014, it was writing. Then I go to the UK with the ambition of becoming a mechanical engineer. I go to Birmingham. There's an accommodation area there. At some point, I just mismanaged my finances. And so I remember I would just go to class, and from class come back and just record. And excuse me, It happened on one day where I was in my room, accommodation room. This was 2014. Yeah, 2014. And in 2014, and in 2014, the name Mr. Within's gift came to my mind. Right, the idea of like, okay, am I the first person in history using this like name, having thought of this name, right? So the name term Mr. Within's gift came for the YouTube channel, and then the sentence 10,000 talks for the betterment of mankind. I heard that sentence so clearly that I just wrote it, and that was the description of my YouTube channel. It still is. All right, I made it. So, anyways, where I'm going with this is in 2014, I go and sit on a bench, and I get my phone and I press record. And I just go into this feeling of just becoming fascinated by the world, and just the words come. And I remember I just became like, at some point it was, I don't know, I mean, I think God saw it, but it was like I was recording so much that it was like I had found an outburst of all this introversion throughout the years. I'd found an outlet, right? And so 2000 something talks later, and after 10 years, alongside of completely living a parallel life to this as well, I'm here now telling you that in my efforts to express out of a feeling of wanting to serve that which is greater than me, which at that point at the beginning was just the betterment of mankind, then turned to the advancement of civilization. You know, then visions for civilization 2.2, 2.0 came. Not 2.2, 2.0. And anyways, my mind began opening up, and also I told you at first there were certain realizations. One realization was that in school I was in like you know, at the beginning of high school I was someone who I guess honestly I would copy from others because I didn't care what the teacher was saying. I couldn't. Years later I understood I just hadn't learned to contextualize the concepts I'm hearing. So one realization was, what if everybody was wrong? What if I choose to copy from someone, what if they're wrong? Right? So you have to start from scratch and completely start from scratch and figure everything out yourself, which means to be able to see ability in yourself. Right? But where that ability comes from, it comes from the system admin, honestly. Anyways, all these years of expression made me, it was as if at first I was thinking, yo, I'm giving talks and becoming comfortable speaking. And then it was like, no. Everything that I'm saying as I go in this feeling has an image. And if I pay attention to what I'm saying, it's cinematic. And then I also realized it's this fascinating combo of saying something, the mind making that into an image, so a new image arises where there was the previous image, so new content automatically arises all the time, right? By the effort to just envision, to wonder. So, and then the next realization was like, it's an unknown world, and what if everybody's wrong? What if nobody knows? So do you understand that feeling? So the burden of reality came onto myself. But what ended up happening after was me actually sitting down and trying to envision the future of the species. And in envisioning the future of the species, in envisioning the future of the species, I realized the greatest argument for that can unite human beings, secular and non-secular, a common denominator to all beings, is the advancement of civilization. It was even such an argument, great argument, that it surpassed. It was kind of like saying chaos and order, like take a break, build the advanced civilization first, then play. But there were still limitations, and the burden of the advanced civilization was on just me. But in having this desire to advance the whole system, and at the same time being a limited individual component in the system, I realized the limitations of myself, and there were even problems I couldn't solve in my own life before even going to solve the problems of the civilization. And the spirituality I thought I had up to this point, I didn't realize was self-worship. It was as if I was self-idolizing myself by making myself equal to everything, and then everything equal to God, which was an error. It's like bad code. So, this skill eventually gave me an ability to articulate reality and perceive cinematically. Okay, what does that mean? That means I can sit anywhere and see any situation, and whether my eyes are opened or closed, and see, completely distinguish my inner realms and see the images. So that means if somebody speaks to me, or when I hear people talk, it's I see images. And if I'm telling someone something, I'm going based on a cinematic rhythm in my inner realms. If my attention gets distracted and I lose the image I was on, like surfing on, then in some sense I completely, the idea goes away, right? But it's still, everything's updating, of course, and everything is up to the system admin, one and only. So anyways, the skill I'm trying to tell you is that in the educational system, you are taught to think through reading and writing. But reading and writing, they have their time and place. Okay, and what the initial thing is, you should be like, if you pay attention, if I tell me the plot of your favorite movie, somehow you remember a movie way better than like a paragraph on a page, verbatim. Okay, but you can imagine, like you can like exactly remember the movie scenes. For example, I can exactly remember every like scene in the movie Gladiator, right? So I'm telling you, the human being this whole time has an ability to the secular. It's weird, but I gotta like give it a name. It would be like cinematic thinking, but to the actuality, what it is that this whole time there's an inner sight, and this inner sight, if you can discriminate between what is your perception and what are perspectives that are not you, okay, then this cinematic aspect is there. I'll give you an example. If I tell you right now, visualize like a red apple hovering in the air, like let's say in front of you, you can visualize that, right? So what happened right now? Words turned into cinema, okay, behind your eyes. Now this cinema, the scenes that come are based on you also, but they're also based on the ability of the speaker, like how able they are to convey. Now when I give a talk, even how I'm talking now, I am seeing something and giving words to it. You don't get this. It's easier. Do you understand? Like, so my understanding, so I'll give you an example. I do this in my work as well. right? And so it's the notion of proactivity. Proactivity means you pretty much, I learned this when I was young from street smart people in Iranian bazaars. Not like I was like there, just like visited a couple times and saw it, right? I saw street smart people, and street smart people knew where the value was, and they were critical thinkers. That means just like a chess player, like let's say you do a move, your opponent does a move, you check all your pieces, then make a move. There's a difference in that game, in that gameplay, right? And so what the street smart person has was trying to see where everything was going and how they could add to that process. Okay? So it would be as if like you working in a company, and this was an advice given to me by an investment banker, believe it or not, when I was walking past the university job fair with a t-shirt and jeans. And the individual told me, I want to hire someone who knows what my boss wants from me. Do you know what that means? That means the captain of the ship truly respects those who on that level are thinking about the problems of the business. Because what everything is a problem set. Do you understand? It's a problem set. Guys, I gotta connect my charger to my phone. It just didn't. But now it glows again. Alright. I saved it from 5%. Anyways, so where I'm going with this is this critical thinking is like you being able to look at this situation where you're looking through your eyes, but from different angles. Do you understand? That means just like you can hold an object in your hand and look at it from different angles, you could do this with perspectives, with subjects this whole time. But you were taught that everything's physical, so don't think too hard. So, for example, I'll give you an example, okay? It's like being in a work situation, right? The owner of the business has trusted you individually to go and in some sense manage the whole store. One person manage the whole store, deal with all the customers. And let's say this is a new business and you're there and you're looking at it and you're in some sense seeing the blind spots of those who are above you, who are conducting the business. And so it's like, believe it or not, it's hilarious. It's like if you want to be the best employee, you gotta think like the employer. I think this is common sense, really. Do you know? And it's the same in areas of life where the mind is here to be like, yo, you think you're the body, let me show you another way you can imagine yourself. Oh, no way. Every day I've been waking up and the mind's been shape-shifting subjectively. It's like I looked left, like that's the self, like that's a new self. I looked right, that's a new self. I looked above me, oh my God, 3 new selves in 3 seconds. It's a game. It's a simulation. It's machinery. But this advanced machinery has divine power in it. The spirit is a secret. The world is a test. You are an opportunity. And the way truth for a religious person is, that means after you've like let's say level people, beings who are just, you truly know they're like limited to level 1 and 2, they want power and they want control and status. Sorry, not that you shouldn't want these if you're righteous. I'm saying it's like, again, the whole argument of, do you want to be a king of a simulation or do you at least want to be a peasant of the original? So I'm saying it's pretty much as a being, as an intelligence, as a soul here, you have, at least I'm seeing it, simplifying it this way for the human species, for Spaceship Earth, for all our the crew members. Pretty much, if level 2 is the ego getting what it wanted, level 3 is realizing the higher power is in charge and you go sit in the passenger seat, aka faith. So it's like if you had trust issues with your world and you wanted to just depart into nothingness from it, it's as if you wonder about why. Do you know? I mean, it's like if you went somewhere, like children go to, how do I say it? Like every human being goes to a coffee shop, right? And if they are spending an hour there, right, they're like, do you have Wi-Fi here? Do you understand? The children of the future generations are like tech obsessed. Are we ignoring this? So people go into a space, wonder about the most advanced technology signal in that space, but we're not wondering what if the most advanced signal is not from the world. So this proactivity to critically think is, again, I gave a clue at the beginning, the metaphor of the ego that can look at a situation from the branch. What are the responsibilities of the employee? And then look at it from the sky, the whole forest, watch the whole forest, and in some sense, what is the responsibilities of the employer? This relationship is in many dimensions of life. The higher power is the presence of the Almighty. Okay? The Almighty means original power. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most merciful, the most benevolent. Theologically, even God being all forgiving is a great clue of the outcome of everything. Honestly, the crossroads are you're either attracted towards the world, or you're pretty much attracted towards the caused or the uncaused. For me, the energy I feel when I pray and go towards God, it's like if the whole world was a dark room going close towards this higher power, one and only, original, ultimate, the ultimate power, the author of being. It's like getting close to a candle in a dark room. It's the metaphor of the central sun being God, where everything is orbiting around. All manifestation, all worlds. So anyways, dear viewers, pretty much I'm telling you cinematically, like a filmmaker, think about the situation, and this is something you need to practice, right? What do I mean? That means like I do playfully, right? But I can envision, I can, just like how in like Photoshop you can put layers, or in Canva, like you can put layers, you can overlay images upon one another and change their opacity. I can do this. I can see flying cars. I can see the future. I can see advanced civilizations behind my eyes, and I share them in my novels. But the issue is that humanity has access to the advanced, but it's not taking the opportunity. So it's as if like something that's really frustrated me, like before 2024, was that how everybody is acting like it's normal that we're not caring for everything, for the ultimate legacy of the human species, the advanced mankind, the advanced humanity, the advanced communicators that will walk this earth, the human beings that will be so much more advanced than us that we cannot even fathom now. How they're even having living cyber lives parallel to natural, biological, whatever. But ultimately, the system admin, it would be like teaching super intelligent computers how to pray, right? Or why it's even necessary. You know, just like if I created, like, you know, in one of my, in the first novel I wrote, The Messenger of Giants, in that sci-fi novel set in the year 5025, this, I don't want to it's a long story, like, I gotta explain the details too much, like, if I want to do it accurately, but pretty much it's like a robot doesn't have a soul, but the closest thing it can do to having a soul is trusting human beings and learning from them, right? In some sense, completely observing the human being. And it's as if you as a soul on this earth, I think noticing the system admin, noticing God's decree in motion is way more rewarding than just being a simulated, bewildered, entitled form. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Thank you for listening. If you have understood this lecture, you have unlocked the skill that behind your eyes you can live ahead of the moment in so many ways. And if you learn, like at first you fear yourself, you fear others, you fear the world, but then you, let's say, trust others, trust yourself, trust the world. And then once you have trusted reality, you may also trust beyond it. It's all about, like, the language is just imagery. Honestly, it's all about simulated beings going towards the original center of being, the original truth. God is here. The characters in the fiction novel can feel the author's handwriting. It's a mighty era for the human being that asks for forgiveness. So the higher reality is activated. Go towards that which somebody once said, I don't know who, makes you feel alive. And to be truly alive, you must care for the highest intelligent interaction level. That means more important than money, power, status, and all the legacy and all this, is if in this lifetime you manage to contact the system admin, you manage to notice the higher power. The higher power is not a form or a shape, it is beyond that. It's not limited. We are in the presence of the one and only limitless. Uncaused, that means no form, attribute can bound such the almighty presence. Thank you for listening, guys. Have a good night. Or good day.